Good evening, everyone. System Shock here with the 53rd episode of, I'm pretty sure it's the 53rd, of the Priest Legacy DLC for Cultist Simulator, playing as Harold Davidson. So we are witnessing the vision of the Red Cup. We'll read that text again, some people watch the videos right away, so it's been a day. Some people watch them all in one big order, and sorry for the repetition. I think it's pretty clear what our next few steps are going to be. We'll get our sort of final lock scar. I can't remember if there's an actual knock lock scar or if it actually starts the ritual when you put knock in. We'll find out in a little bit. But I obviously have a few other priorities to deal with first. We do need to resolve this hunger issue, so I'm going to be leaving the dream slot open for a little while. We are going to have to deal with the fact that there will likely be evidence against me as well. So there's a few different things that I'm going to be juggling, and the fact that we've got dread in an icy atmosphere are also going to have a couple of consequences. But it might be that the game is kind and we can just let time pass without worrying about them. But you know, we want to build in sort of a response to that contingency if we need it. But for the time being, let's unpause and see what happens. Here, says the woman of ivory in my vision, let me show you that not all scars are pain. She sets her mouth to the well of my blood until her paleness is thrilled all through with threads of rose. Trying to think if there's something I can do with the percussive gun right now. The auctioneer's gamble bangs. My item is sold. Okay, so we're covered for the next... Oh, nice. The congregation has donated generously, and they haven't limited those donations to the collection plate. So I am still going to build up my funds, but in this case we can start selling things like the jumble, which have less certain value. So, where did Oriflammes go? Here we go. This oddity is probably worth something, but it's hard to be sure. Now I need to think about what I'm going to do with the percussigant. I didn't want to do this, but I'm going to now. Not everything from the Mantis can speak, but everything can understand mortal speech, even once it's past the white door. Actually, I also had an idea about what to do with the winter lore, but I might have missed the opportunity. If I give myself to the frenzy, I will learn a wild lesson. So what I'm trying to do here is get myself a contingency heart just in case. So, actually, yeah, so we're turning one heart into a lock scar, or one health into a lock scar. Then I'll need the health for the knock. And then, of course, if there is something like a season of sickness, I won't have anything that it can absorb. So what I'm doing here is I'm starting the path to generate one more health. But obviously that's going to come at the expense of my reason, which may affect my ability to level up lore or produce writings for my mentors. Nagella claims that the Hours who sometimes manifest as birds, the laughing thrush, the ivory dove, the beach crow, and the witch and sister, meet at a secret location on a mountaintop to exchange gossip unheard by their peers. Now and then a mortal overhears them. The mortal is always obliterated, and the meeting place is always changed. So another unresolved ambiguity and another copy of the Centipede Testament. I think we can just move on to the next bit of study. So where has she gone? The Spieth, perhaps a single adept, perhaps a council of scholars, hypothesizes secret events from limited evidence with persuasive accuracy. The vagabond is recorded to have traveled not only the Mansis and the Wood, not only all 9 continents, but also places forbidden to other Hours. Okay, getting lucky with the notoriety so far. We have 3 minutes to go, and we're gonna lose one of the mystiques. So we shouldn't bank on being able to just live out the notoriety, but we'll see. All right. My congregation have waited all night in vigil. I am awake. My wound is almost invisible, but the scar will remain. Health has been permanently converted to a scar. There are always 7 marks. You will need 7 lock scars. There is always a way through, though the way may be narrow. So there's our Grail lock scar. So Grail, Winter, Forge, Edge, Lantern, Moth, Heart. Okay. So first thing I want to do is deal with this hunger. I've gone some time without food. I should eat carefully. And the auctioneer's gavel bangs. My item has sold. So, one thing I'm kind of curious about. So if we take the Formula Ophidian... Oh yeah, we don't have any heart, so I can't do that. Just in anticipation of potential evidence against me, let's take the Sunset Rite, the Chilly Atmosphere. We will add Neville, and we will bring in the Formula Fissive. Yes, for the Callagine. Forge for the Smoky Spirit Summoning, Winter for its Binding. It must know who will rule it. And we're going to go back to Oriflamme's to sell some more possessions. The whole point of kind of having a bank of, or like using the items as a bank, that's gone now. And in this case, I want to get my funds back up, potentially for expeditions, or just so that I can have some more options. So, and I don't have any expedition, like I have an expedition I can go on, but I don't have any secret histories that I want to explore. So now is a good time for me to just sort of clear all of that out. What was I going to do? Let's sell the sculpture. This oddity is probably worth something, but it's hard to be sure. And I'm a bit lucky here. The fascination season of visions is passing by, so I don't believe we'll get a second one in a row. I think somebody in the comments had said that they'd run into a situation where they got 2 directly in a row, but my impression was that basically this verb exists at the time the verb in this area is created, and there can't be more than one of these. So, but obviously it's the flip side to that is it's incredibly annoying if you have experienced someone to have someone then turn around and say, you know, what you saw with your own eyes did not in fact happen. You know, it's not my place to tell people what they experienced, but it is not something that I've personally seen. The Preguzigant will lead me in the movements my body will not support, and if I need to make both changes and amends, why then my skin will bear the tail. The tail, oh my skin, the bear, the tail. So Subtle Rupture if I want to do another summoning. So I've got some Decrepitude. So the question, I think the big question here is, why on earth? And I think this might be people's reactions. So how is it that you are able to figure out, like, so here's the thing. This is going to be a little bit of a rant, and it's Cultist Simulator related, but it's a little bit just about how we play games, because I have a very particular way that I like playing games, particularly on streams, whether these are on YouTube or on Twitch. And that's not necessarily the same for everyone. Once upon a time, you know, you would play a game, and your access to information about that game, particularly how to solve things, would be very limited. You know, maybe you're playing something in an arcade machine. Maybe you're playing something at home, but internet connections either don't exist, or they are something that are rare, or if they're not rare, at least it's precious. You're usually giving up something either financially, or I guess with certain internet connections, you know, you'd stop people from being able to use the phone, which was an annoyance. But anyways, the idea here is that the access to information is not the same as it would be for you know, for us. So, and this is evident, I do like playing some older games, so every once in a while there will be an adventure game which refers to the hint line. So I'm pretty sure Day of the Tentacle refers to the LucasArts hint line. And so, you know, I always kind of like laughing when people complain about DLC, because it's like, well, you know, I don't think there are any games that are making us pay to know how to solve it. But needless to say, right, even considering situations like that, it's very fair to say that we are at a time where we can learn most, if not all, of what we would want to learn about a game. The exception would really be for games that are incredibly niche. And like in the case of Cultist Simulator, it's a niche game, but it has a very dedicated group of players who like talking about the game and its lore and its solutions. So when I'm talking about niche, really I should just say games with a very small player count, because of course if you don't have a community that likes talking about solutions, then chances are people aren't, it's not going to be as easy to find the solutions to things. So for instance, when Cultist Simulator was, in sort of a demo or a prototype stage, you wouldn't really know how to solve these things, because if you did an internet search, you couldn't find out what was going on. But of course now we'll have games like Dark Souls, and I'm not sure if this is intentional for Dark Souls or not, because I got the advantage of seeing notes from players left on the ground. Of course, not every note left by a player is going to be there for your benefit, and of course the part of the idea of that game is that other players can also jump in and attack you. But from my understanding, there is something of a culture and sort of an intention in that game to go online and maybe figure out what's going on, which has to be very difficult for reviewing games like that, because presumably at that point nobody's played it, nobody knows how to solve these things. But in any case, I mean, I think the games are manageable on their own. I've so far enjoyed the first two, struggling, but managing to get through to the end. So for me, I like that process of wrestling with the difficulty, and certainly getting the lock scars was a big challenge for me, because I had not really, I played the game in a certain state before, and I had sort of taken it for granted that you could get extra health from leveling up your physical attribute. But once you got to a matchless physique, that was it. You couldn't permanently keep increasing your heart forever. Sorry, I just need to sneeze. I thought I did anyway. Sorry. So, this was one that really did me in, and it actually took the patch notes for me to notice. So the game is pretty clear, saying that you need, there's always a way, but the way may be narrow. And it will, but it's never going to outright tell you, here's the thing that you need to do. I remember back when decrepitude didn't exist, but I also remember an email that sort of talked a little bit about, this. So taking decrepitude and turning that back into health has been something that's been in the game, I think, since release. So some wounds never quite heal. Untreated injuries and hunger become decrepitude, which does not return to health. Decrepitude remains until you die. Now this is not strictly true. You can use supernatural means to sort of recover your health. And that's kind of where the key is. So basically what happens here, in the patch either close to or the patch that was associated with the Priest Legacy, there was this aspect, Thresher of Thoughts, and there's an equivalent for Passion as well, I believe. And oddly enough, I tried to use Phylaxian once on this playthrough, but it didn't actually turn out for me, so I didn't go through it. I think this might be to protect you from when you're doing the final ritual. So, I don't know, maybe I'll give this a try sometime. But the real trick to this one is where you'll read this. If I speak to this one, I could offer it my reason. And as I've sort of said from a couple of playthroughs, one of the big ways to sort of improve in Cultist Simulator and to be able to solve stuff on your own is to actually take the time and see how things are being described. So the text is, the writing in this game is excellent. There's more hints in the writing here than you'll sometimes recognize in the moment. But I've tended to find that some of the solutions that I will find usually come from taking a look at these different aspects, because those are the building blocks. That's essentially how the game is going to sort of categorize things and decide what's going on. So when you look at something like this, and this was my first reaction to this, was why on earth would I ever want to give up reason? I'm a lantern player, right? Why would I want to give that up? Well, think about what happens. Normally, what you've got in this game is you've got supernatural means of converting passion into reason and reason into passion. So in this case here, you're sort of calibrating, right? You're taking one good thing and turning it into another good thing. But why would you voluntarily remove a desirable trait in order to get something that on its own is useless? There's actually one other thing about decrepitude that you can do that's kind of helpful, but I personally don't usually use it that much. There's basically, I think there's some play styles which like to have a decrepitude sitting around on the table, but it's not a style for me personally. So essentially, the trick here is that, and we did this a couple of times before, is once you hit your limit of health, once you start giving up some of your reason, and of course, I'm kind of imagining there's a reason why I've gone for reason only. It's not just because passion's kind of useful for the ritual and, and the paintings and all of that. I actually kind of like the idea of Davidson sort of losing his reason over the course of his transformation, turning into the mad prophet. So in this case here, what you are doing when you're giving up your reason or passion is you're turning it into decrepitude. But the way to think about it is you're getting the raw material with which you can get more health. So the reason why I think this is a tricky puzzle, number one, if you played the game before the introduction of this, you fall into the trap that I very often fall into in Cultist Simulator, which is to think, basically, I think I know everything. And so I don't take the time to double check the aspects, and I don't sort of think things through when I see something extra like this. I'm like, oh, if I speak to this one, I could offer it my reason. I'm never going to do that, but thanks for the option, game, and then move on. And of course, the other challenge is that once you can say, okay, so clearly this was added to the game for some reason, and probably it's going to be related to the DLC. The other part that makes this challenging is that you're not getting a clear benefit from it. And what you're getting is the potential to turn it into something. So you've kind of got these two steps removed from your immediate task. So if you're saying, how do I get more health? You start thinking about things that generate health. You don't necessarily think about things that take away features from you, right? If you're looking for something if you're looking for acquisitions, you tend not to think about things that diminish you. And so that's why I think the priest puzzle is a particularly challenging one. But ultimately, and I mean, there might be another path that I'm not aware of, but this is how we've been able to get these lock scars. And if you've been struggling with the priest, this is probably the part that I think you were missing, which is, and I believe everyone who's been watching up to this point has passed the priest, but I figure there's probably going to be at least one or two people who haven't been able to get through the priest. And if you want to get to the ending yourself before you watch the closing videos, this is how you do it. But basically, you have to get decrepitude, and you turn that decrepitude into health. And once you have done that, you will find that you're able to generate, again, not an infinite amount of health, but you're going to be able to generate at least enough to get your remaining lock scars. So sorry for the long rant on that. Like I said, it is a puzzle. I started talking about it. In the case of Cultist Simulator, it's got a wonderful community, and I think you can go check out the wiki for more things. But the challenge is that if you play Cultist Simulator and you always have the wiki open, you don't give yourself the chance to solve the puzzles. And so that's one of the reasons why I sort of talk about the different cultures of different games, and everybody plays these things differently. So one of the things that I like to do when I talk about these are just say, some of us are going to want to go and ask other people. And I think that can be a positive thing, right? Because just like in Cultist Simulator, you go into the Mansis and you see other travelers there, and you will sometimes learn. Maybe you'll find an address to check out, or maybe you'll learn some lore from them. And much the same way, you can go on a Discord, you can go on a forum, you can, there's lots of different ways to interact with other people who are interested in the secret history setting. But I always kind of like going back to that question of saying, like, okay, so assuming I didn't have an internet connection, or assuming that I didn't know this was the secret community that I can get all the answers from, how would I have solved this? And usually whenever I have a kind of an aside like this, it's nice to just be able to sort of turn around and say, okay, so this is how this thing would have been done. You know, this is the part that you could have done in an earlier stage, or this is the part that the game was sort of guiding you towards, but it didn't explicitly connect it in there. Anyways, I'm sorry to take so much time on that, but I'm hoping those of you who are struggling through it don't just know how to get through the priest now, but you have a little bit of a mental model for what might have gone wrong with the reasoning, and when you encounter another puzzle, it's something that will allow you to take it on your own terms. Okay, my strength returns. The wheedling dark at the corners of my sight is gone. So I'm going to do a couple of things here. We've got 29 seconds before this can turn out. So I'm actually going to try the Flaxian feature. Not everything from the Mantis can speak, but everything can understand mortal speech, even once it has passed the white door. Now I'm going to want to hang on to the subtle rupture, so I'm going to have to think about sneaky things to do there as well. From our gossip and invisible lore, Spieth deduces that the vagabond has visited nowhere, but that she will not return. He also asserts that she has yet to visit the glory, but that inevitably, this must be her goal. So Vagabond's map is quite valuable because we don't have one of these yet, so I think we're actually going to explore with that right away. The river, wrote the sage Mech in the Book of the Centipede, runs through the sands out of myth and into legend. This is the place the centipede was born. You know what? I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to keep selling stuff at Oriflamme's. This oddity is probably worth something, but it's hard to be sure. Nope, and I need to study. Fascination's still coming up, so let's go... Yeah, no, we'll do Book of Masks. Athena Vanna's work on the rogue hour called the Vagabond, who is also known as the Laughing Thrush, the Centipede, the Pilgrim, and by many other names, or, as Vanna puts it, masks. The Mask of the Laughing Thrush, says Athena Vanna, has a great friendship with the sun and splendor, the highmost hour of the Mansis, now divided and departed. The Mask of the Sight Thief, painted the river in the Mansis. The Mask of the Vagabond was forbidden the Mansis, not for what she had done, but for what would occur. Okay, well, we are getting lucky with the Mystique. Okay, so we want to be careful about the about fascination, but I think there's we're in a fairly good place here because we've got a fleeting reminiscence. So, not all of the Forge's creatures are bright. Its offcuts and its bastards gather in the bounds like hammer scale in the cracks of a smithy floor. Here comes one now. At the corners of the Forge and the bounds of the Mantis, the glory's fire meets baser elements. Here is a cunning vapor to infect your enemy's dreams. Okay. But I would need the health for that, so... Okay, I'm really messing around with my abilities here. We don't have the fervor, so that's still not going to help me. Alright. I was thinking I might be able to do something with the subtle rupture, but as usual, I didn't really think this through. So I can try and recover my decrepitude. That might be the most useful thing I can do right now. Again, there's no real way I'm going to keep the subtle rupture. So let's do the Sunset Rite. We will add... So I always feel like you need to have Forge for restoring health. And then I think it's Grail. For some reason I thought it would be Heart, but... yeah, if I had Grail, perhaps I could renew my body. So, Rhaenyra, if you'd be so kind. Major Forge Redemption, and we need to increase the Forge to 15. So this is where I would add an ingredient. It's actually probably... Nope, yeah, still adding Rhaenyra is the right call. So we add Rhaenyra, we add the formula fissive, and then we... So this is actually one that we can do without giving anything up, but it probably makes more sense to... Oh! Iotic essence then. The Forge of Days destroys and renews. If I invoke it with the Grail to renew my failing flesh with forbidden magics, you are calling on a grand degree of Forge, and this will almost certainly succeed, but there are always risks. Oh, but this will generate fascination. So... Auctioneer's gavel bangs. My item has sold. Well, we'll just have to learn. We'll just have to learn to deal with that. One more item to. Sorry, two more items to sell at Oriflamme's, and then we can start exploring locations to head out to. This oddity was probably worth something, but it's hard to be sure. And I'm running out of excuses to go to the, to avoid using the dream slot, so let's just go back through the Peacock's Door. The Peacock's Door reflects the mirror I hold in my sleep, and the mirror reflects the Peacock's Door. Already a sensuous shiver ripples its surface. It aches for fracture, and when it finds that satisfaction, I will enter. Okay, the percussivant will weave the beat of my heart into the steps of its dance unending, and that might be enough. So a stay of execution. The flesh fails, but I've been promised that my flesh will fail a little later. This is a final insurance against sickness, if no health remains to you. Cool. Okay, so I need to use this more often. I think for a precaution, so there's a couple things that I can do with my characters. Oh, I'm going to need a restlessness at some point. Well, we can actually accomplish that by talking with the Callaghan, so... I can't talk to... Oh, I can talk to it about the subtle fracture. Kind of cheesy for me to do, but I'm accepting it. Murmurings in the audience. For whatever unlikely reason, my item has caught the fancy of the bidders. And the Mask of the Centipede recalled her birthplace, Maya, which had punished her for creeping into the temple precinct. This mask cursed Maya to drink only dust and to be remembered only by the wind, for not beneath any mask does she forgive, and the centipede hunger is not to be forgotten. Alright. So, the fleeting reminiscence should deal with the fascination. I may want to see what I'm up against before I try any funny business with dread. You know what, I think, I can be cautious about this stuff forever, but I'll do the knock book first, because that's going to be a bit more relevant to my interests. And then I think we'll just run into the hardcore stuff. Like, I can be scared forever in the game, but I think it makes as much sense for us to just move ahead with our studies. On the matter and the deeds of serpents. This was probably the prophecies of the Naga rendered into English and illustrated by William Midnight in Paris in the 1880s, but it shows a number of divergences from that text. It's certainly quite recent by the standards of VAC texts. The serpent folk, called the Great Hooded Princes, came to know the order called the House of Leith and warred across the miles with them. They made an alliance with the mother of ants, whose children they had been. Okay, so we knew that was coming. We've got an open, we've got kind of a spare turn coming up, so that's good. I have been renewed with flame, tempered with blood. My flesh is strong again, but the forge's radiance has dazzled my soul, and people will talk. Decrepitude has been transformed back to health, but you've gained fascination and notoriety. So we've got 2 health to run around with, plus the insurance policy from the percussigan. We have got 54 seconds left on the fleeting reminiscence, so I'm probably going to want to do something to extend its life. And I think I'm going to do the same trick that I did before, which was to throw a whole bunch of passion. And this is just to generate as much moth as I can in order to be able to potentially use it in a service. So one more trip to Oriflamme's. We're already doing pretty well. well for ourselves as far as funds are concerned, but we're not generating a lot of income through traditional means, so I'm gonna have to play around with that a little bit. This oddity is probably worth something, but it's hard to be sure. And there's actually a side of me, I think I'm going to switch this out for the Centipede Testament just so I can push my luck even further. It'll generate a notoriety, but we've got a Callagine to work with that, so... Okay, we don't need any more unresolved ambiguities. So the question is, does the Red Church or the Worm Museum help me out here? And I think what I'm going to do in the one thing the Worm Museum's not going to give me is fascination. So let's roll the dice on it. Okay. Vagabond map. So I forgot to update my notes from the previous one. So unlucky for us to deal with, but it, like in this case, I actually don't need to worry about the fleeting reminiscence anymore. I kind of hope that this dread gets picked up. I dreamed last night of the Worm Museum. The hours have set wards about it and warnings before it, but they have left it open to mortal adepts who can prove themselves by reaching it. Perhaps they hope to inspire revulsion against the things that bred in the corpse of the sun. Those things are here still, always dying, never dead. They came from nowhere, the warnings say, and if they complete their work, the Mantis will be nowhere one day. So, on that note, we'll add a little bit of money to the painting. It is a passion painting, so it's not necessarily one that is going to earn me a lot of money, but we'll take the risk nonetheless. But we are kind of closing in. Like I said, I didn't really plan the route all that well because I don't have the fervor, and I don't have a restlessness, and those are actually going to require some effort to get. In fact, if I'm trying to generate the restlessness, I did that way too early, but I probably have some ways of working with that. But one way or the other, we are going to do our best to mess around with Knock. It is actually funny. It's been a while since I've done this, so there are a couple, I think there's a couple of things about the Knock lock scar / ritual that are tricky or unexpected. So we'll see whether or not I can pull it off. But that's part of the fun of the exploration and doing the videos. We will handle that, of course, in future videos. Thank you for watching. If you are enjoying the series and have not done so already, please consider subscribing. And if you want to either help the videos get noticed or express your appreciation or otherwise interact with me, I always love seeing the likes and any comments that you may leave. I try to respond to them as often as I can. And if you didn't like the video, I guess you can dislike as well. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.